Hi, I'm Chike Coleman of Sound On Sight. That's Chuck Koplinski of the Illinois Times and the News Gazette. This is
Why can't you look at me when you say that?
because the camera is right behind you. I have to look at the camera.
Oh, okay. So I shouldn't take it personally?
No.
Well, you're looking at me now, which is good.
I adore you, Chuck. I don't need to look at you at the start of the program. I have to look at the audience.
All right,
I
I
have
just
to
want to make
connect.
sure we're clear on this. Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Do your thing.
So this is Review Cinematic Underground, the only show that talks about movies independent and theatrical. And this week we're going to be talking about the 2014 Ebert Fest. Chuck, you regrettably had other engagements and you were not able to go, so you graciously gave me time to find a festival pass.
Mm-hmm.
And
Gave you time. Let's rephrase that.
okay, you gave me your pass. Yeah.
There we go. Thank
Yeah.
you. It's on record.
Yeah.
I gave you my pass.
Yeah, it's on record. This year's Ebert Fest had a lineup that was pretty much both the most star-studded and the most diverse, I would think, in more so than previous years. We had films like Wadia, the Middle Eastern film about a girl who really wanted to get a bike for her own mutual independence to beat a boy in a race. We had A Simple Life about a person who'd been a servant for many years and her slowly starting to pass away due to strokes, and the way the people she worked for reacted to that struggle. We had so many different good, diverse films. But what I want to open with today is Do the Right Thing. Spike Lee's 1989 picture about race relations in New York. And that stars Spike Lee and Ruby Dee and Ozzie Davis and Giancarlo Esposito and many other.
Danny Aiello.
Danny Aiello.
John Turturro.
John Turturro is another one.
Cannot forget that.
This film was something I saw later on in life in my 20s, and it's very interesting because you see the neighborhood that all these people inhabit, and you see how race relations are tough in this city. Cops are not our friends. They're not here to help us. They're here to imprison us in a way. And you have this pizza shop. I forget what the name of the pizza shop
Sal's
is.
Pizzeria.
Sal's, yeah. And you have Sal's Pizzeria, which is like the community hangout. Everybody wants to go to Sal's, except for, of course, a guy named Radio Raheem. And he doesn't want to go there because they won't allow him to play his music.
Right, he wants to go there, but he can't turn his damn radio down.
Right, and that frustrates Sal to an nth degree. Meanwhile, we have another central character, Mookie, who is delivering pizza for Sal, and the relationship between Sal and Mookie and Sal's sons is very interesting and diverse. You have one son that is sort of halfway friend with Mookie and sort of not.
He's torn.
And he's torn between his alliance to his Italian roots and the culture he lives in, which is quite fascinating. And you have kind of this strife because you feel like, okay, these people are all working together to do the right thing for themselves, but at some point that's all going to boil over because one person thinks that they're doing the right thing for another person, and it doesn't work out. And that's kind of what happens in this film, is that there's a tipping point between Radio Raheem and Sal, where he won't turn his music down or shut it off to get the slice of pizza, and Sal, who's had a lot of issues throughout the day with people in the neighborhood, not wanting their pizza a certain way and, being angry and bitter about different things. Mookie complaining to Sal is even one of the bits that pushes things over the edge. Something happens to a character in the film that starts off what I would say would be a riot. That's the nicest way to put it. What did you think of this film when you first saw it, Chuck?
I think we talked about this last time, but there are few occasions when you go see a film where you know that you're seeing something unique, that you know you're seeing something special, and this was one of those occasions. I saw it in Chicago when it first came out. I was going to college up there with a mixed audience, and I just remember being very silent afterwards. It was dead silent in the theater. Everyone was just, I think, amazed with what we had seen, but also trying to gather our thoughts. It's the kind of movie that makes you think and also makes you perhaps reevaluate how you think, if you are open to the film's message. Obviously, some people will never be open to the film's message. But if you go in with an open mind, it really does present a lot of interesting angles to this problem that just doesn't seem to go away. There's a lot of irony in the film, I think. I think I've said to you that I find the title ironic because I don't think anyone does the right thing. I think, though, you hit on an interesting point here in which they all think they're doing the right thing for themselves, but socially, it's not the right thing.
Exactly.
And it has to be, I think, what you're referring to, and I think you're right, is that with a situation like this, with this issue, we can't act selfishly.
Yeah.
You have to act in a way that's going to benefit the community, even though you might not agree with it totally. There's so many wonderful small moments in the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you mentioned Samuel L. Jackson has a key moment here
as the radio DJ.
Yeah, there's a radio station in the neighborhood.
That's the truth.
Yeah, and Rosie Perez is there too, one of her first films in which she plays
her actual first film, according to Spike.
Yeah, her Mookie's girlfriend, baby mama, I guess is the term we would use today. But it's just such an honest, frank
discussion,
film.
yeah.
And Lee, I can't stand some of the things he says when he's interviewed because he seems to be a very polemic figure. But what's ironic in this film is that he wrote it, he directs it, and I think that he gives time to every distinctive point of view, even the ones he might not agree with.
Exactly, even the Larry Bird jersey-wearing character who shows up.
Him.
Yeah.
There's a key moment, one of the key moments that no one really talks about is a conversation Sal has with his oldest son. They're sitting in a booth. It's in the afternoon.
That to me is the best scene in the movie,
There's not much going on. And he's trying to talk to his son about his hatred that he has for blacks and trying to tell him that, you know, that's not the way it should be. And this kid is just adamant about how he feels. And
I actually remember a portion of the speech. The portion of the speech that I loved so much was him saying, these people, they made my life because they came in and they decided to like my pizza.
Yeah. I'm proud of that.
I'm proud of that.
They grew up on my food.
They grew up on my food.
Yes. And the kid says, I hate them. I can't stand them. And he goes on this diatribe about them. And it's just, what makes this special film is that it doesn't have one point of view. It is smart in looking at all points of view, and it doesn't pander to the audience in saying, this is how we solve the problem.
Yeah.
Because you can't.
They're not even giving a solution, I would say.
Well, and I think that's smart because you can't.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
such a complex problem. You would be insulting the audience to suggest that, oh, this is simply solved. And that's why the film has legs. That's why it's a classic. That's why it's as fresh today as it was when it came out.
And you know what I love most about this film, other than the silence that took place throughout pretty much the entire movie?
Yeah.
Watching Spike watch his own film. He found little hints of things in watching it 25 years later that he didn't think. I heard him laughing. He was right next to me as I was watching the film. And watching him observe his own work and the people and the characters and how the story unfolds, you could see the sense of pride, but you could also see the sense of, I didn't know I could build that until I did. And that's something that's supremely special in watching the film at Ebert Fest this year. I really loved it, and it was one of the great experiences of the festival among many this year. Another film I saw again for the second time was Short Term 12. This film, starring Brie Larson, talks about the foster system.
Foster child system.
Foster child system, and a halfway house of sorts that kids have to go to before, they're chucked out at the age of 18, and all the different diverse problems that people deal with. And Grace is played by Brie Larson, and it discusses her own journey through her own personal struggles, and also deals with the struggles of another young lady whose name I cannot remember. But the way those two connect each other and the way their stories kind of parallel in the sense of the physical torment that they've both gone through in different ways. And Grace's reaction to all that once she does learn, okay, this person actually was abused in some way, and how Grace proactively goes about trying to prove that to those above her makes the film so fascinating. And the other thing that's so fascinating is her relationship with her boyfriend, and the fact that, this isn't spoiling much, the fact that through part of the film she finds out she's pregnant, and what to do about that, and how basically throughout the entire film she acts on her own. She acts on her own accord independently, irregardless of the fact that her boyfriend should be involved in the decision, I at least believe. And that makes the dynamics between her, the person that she's trying to save, her boyfriend, and one other kid who is African American, who has a lot of issues socially.
Very angry.
Very angry, very bitter about things that go on in his own life, or have gone on in his own life. There's a scene I really love, and that I hope we get a chance to talk about, involving him getting a haircut, and what he's expecting to see, the scars of the damage that he's expecting to see, and the both sheer joy that they're not there, and the anger that he has no proof that this all happened to him, is just wonderfully played by a guy named Lakeith something, I believe his name is. So I really love that aspect of the film. One of the other things that is really challenging about this film is it shows you a world that people don't usually see. The foster care system and the support system behind that for those who have nowhere to go is something that I didn't know existed. I knew we had a facility like that in town, in the Crisis Nursery. But
also the Cunningham Children's Home.
Also the Cunningham Children's Home provides a similar service, yes. So having that be put onto screen and having people notice it and see it and want to get more information about it was also nice. I went to the panel earlier about social work for this film that was for Ebert Fest, and Brie Larson talked about embracing your own darkness, that everybody has a darkness to them, and the key to succeeding in life is embracing that darkness and using it as a strength rather than a weakness, which I found quite odd.
I don't know if I'd agree with that completely.
I found quite odd, but embracing the fact that it is part of your past and it doesn't need to be part of your present, I think is what her entire point was.
What the point was? Okay, well,
Yeah.
maybe then, because,
Yeah, embracing that it did happen rather than ignoring it and burying it and making it worse for yourself.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to embrace my dark side and run with it. That would
No,
be
no,
good
no.
for anyone involved at all, yeah.
Anyway, what did you think of this film?
I liked it.
What?
I liked it for all the reasons you said.
Oh, okay, so that makes
You
complete.
pretty well covered it.
Makes
She's
complete
wonderful,
sense.
though. I mean,
She is. She's
wonderful.
fantastic in the
I
film.
think that, she was overlooked at Oscar time. And
Completely,
she's one of
yeah.
those young actresses now that every time I see her name involved in film, I'm going to be interested.
Yeah,
She's that good.
she really is, and I think the strength of the film is not only her performance, but how she relates to everyone else in that film. That's what makes it unique and special to me. So I really like that, seeing that again. Have you seen Goodbye Solo or Simple Life or any of those?
Boy, I'm glad we talked before this show, even though I told you this last time.
Yeah, you said you hadn't. I'm joking with you.
It's your show, do your thing.
But yeah, I want to talk with you next about a new film that's out, and that's The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
We're not going to talk about Waja?
No.
Okay.
We can cover that another time.
Of course, because it'll be timely. Sure, go.
Yeah. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, directed again by Mark Webb, who directed the previous effort in the 500 Days of Summer, returns for the sequel that involves Peter Parker essentially finding out about what the whole mystery is behind his parents, relating to Gwen Stacy and his romance and love life with her that goes on and off throughout the entire film. Meeting Max Dillon and realizing that he has a fan in Max Dillon, but realizing after a short amount of time that he really can't help Max Dillon, and Max Dillon is angry at Spider-Man because Spider-Man was supposed to help him and said that they were friends, and it's basically idol worship, essentially, is what it is. Then you have Dane DeHaan's character, whose father just passed away, Harry Osborn, and it's revealed that he has the same disease that his father has, and he's going to die, and he wants vengeance on Spider-Man. So there's that Green Goblin angle. And then the Rhino is introduced at the end of the film, and that's basically the entire movie in a nutshell. I mean...
You told us everything, and yet you told us nothing.
Yeah, I really did. I just glazed over
You
everything.
are a master.
I glazed over everything. Here's the thing about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I've realized now that Andrew Garfield is not the right actor in that film.
I liked him the first time out. I didn't like him the second time.
I didn't like him the second time. He was whiny. He was too frustrated with things that were going on that didn't feel believable. I believed in his romance with Gwen Stacy. That I will say I believe.
I didn't even believe that.
You didn't believe that? Okay.
It seemed to me as though their scenes were well-rehearsed patter.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't anything spontaneous about any of it. I didn't like him here as Peter. I liked him the first time out, but here even Peter seems a bit too cocky.
Cocky, disingenuous too.
And that's not Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Peter Parker still needs to be a little bit nerdy.
Humane.
Yeah, and he needs to still have some self-esteem issues here. That's been left behind.
Yeah.
That's not Peter as I know him.
I think it's because he's having so much fun being Spider-Man as the hero that
I can understand that, but...
But yeah, I mean, I thought about this long and hard, and I said, who would I really want to play Peter Parker?
Tobey Maguire.
No. I mean, I like Tobey Maguire's performance, but no. The guy who played Kick-Ass, Aaron Taylor Johnson. I would rather see the roles reversed. Have Andrew Garfield as Kick-Ass and have Aaron Taylor Johnson as Peter Parker. The effect would still work.
Anyway.
I didn't like this film at all. I felt that, you know, okay, they're going to have 3 villains in the film and we're going to see a lot of them and it's going to be this really nice build to the Sinister Six. Nope, that's not really true. It's basically halfway parceled out throughout the entire film. You get a little bit of Harry Osborn, you get a little bit of his resentment, you get a little bit of Max Dillon, Electro being, you know, fanboyish and angry at Spider-Man for not being able to save him. You get a little bit of Rhino at the very beginning and end of the film, and that's it. There's no real connectivity. You don't really feel bad for any of these villains becoming villains. In fact, there's no reason for them to become villains. You have to have some form of tragedy to actually really invest in a person's villainy. I like emotionally connecting to my villains. I'm sorry, if you like them mindless and senseless, that's your own priority.
The film has a lot of problems, and you know that first go-around of Batman films was criticized whenever there was more than one villain in those movies. I think it worked once.
It worked in Batman Returns?
Yeah, with the Penguin and Catwoman, that was fine. But these villains, you've got to give them their own film.
Yeah.
As you say, there's just not enough screen time. You've got to develop them, and this thing is a mess.
The action scenes are good, though.
They're good, but it reminded me of Man of Steel in the sense that it's one action scene, and then there's another action scene, and then there's another. I wanted the film to just stop and take a breath every once in a while. It goes by in a blur.
The film doesn't pace itself, the story doesn't pace itself, and therefore you don't really get any time to invest in any of the characters.
Yeah. It reminded me, the villains almost reminded me of things out of the old Batman TV series, as far as being so cartoonish.
Yeah, we have to stop him!
And even the Jamie Foxx character, when we see him at the beginning, as he's talking to the mirror, he's talking to himself in his apartment. That could be tragic if it was done in a King of Comedy, Taxi Driver kind of way. Yeah. The tone was completely different, and it was almost comical. And I kept thinking, oh, we're in the Batman TV realm here. And that's not the route you want to go. Maybe that's the route you want to go. I don't know, but it's not what I would do. These movies don't appeal to me. I think they're for a younger set, but they're not
definitely
for
for a younger set, and they're definitely to sell toys. I feel like the maturity that needs to be there isn't there, and I'm not going to hope that the third film provides that.
Well, I think we get a Sinister Six film before we get the third film.
Really?
I believe the plan is that the next film focuses on the 4 villains who've been introduced so far. And then, of course, there's a scene in which we've walked, where we have the mysterious character walk by the Dr. Octopus arms and the Vulture wings in this one. So those 2 characters obviously are going to be introduced somewhere, and they will make up the Sinister Six. But we're going to have a Sinister Six film before we get to Spider-Man 3.
But then what would be the main hero-villain conflict if you don't have Spider-Man involved in any of that?
They have not consulted me. I do not know.
I don't see... And
maybe then we get the character development on the villains at that point.
Maybe.
I don't know. But Sony, of course, is in a Sony, which owns the rights to the Spider-Man characters. They have nowhere to go.
They're just pooping out films just
Well,
to make toys and profits.
Well, no. Well, of course, what they've wanted to do is they want to do what Marvel has done and put out a series of films. But they can't really because they only have access to the Spider-Man characters, so they're expanding on the villains. We'll see if this works or not.
And
That's what they're doing.
And the DC Universe is doing the same thing because they just announced that there's going to be a Justice League movie in 2016.
Right, but of course they have many more characters to pick from. And obviously they're trying to go the route of Marvel. They're not doing it right, but they're trying to. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah. The last one I want to talk today is something you recommended to me late last night. It's a film called Enemy.
Yes.
Starring Jake Gyllenhaal.
Want me to take this one?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal, I say, the most daring American film actor we have working right now.
I completely agree.
Not just based on this. The guy takes chances left and right. Brokeback Mountain, End of Watch, Prisoners.
Yeah.
And Prisoners, the director of that directed this film, Enemy. It's really a simple setup.
Right.
He plays a depressed college professor. He's kind of stuck in a loop. He goes through the motions of his day. There's nothing really exciting about what he does. He has a very beautiful girlfriend. They have sex, it seems, every night, but it's not anything where there's an emotional connection. It's a complete pattern, correct. However, he rents a movie one day on the recommendation of a colleague of his. He watches the movie, and in the background, he sees an actor who looks just like him. He's curious about this. He must go to IMDb. He finds out the name of other movies this guy's in. He tracks those down. He watches them. And then he finds out that the guy just happens to live in the same city that he lives in. He's able then to track down this guy who looks just like him and meet him.
Yeah, and
then things get really complex. This thing plays out like an extended Twilight Zone episode.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what we're dealing with. Yeah, that's what it is.
Twilight Zone and Tales from the Crypt were the two things I came up with.
The pacing's pretty good. Just when you're about to get frustrated with it, they give you just another piece to keep you going as far as, well, keeping you curious as to how this is all going to be explained somehow.
The hints are in the dialogue. I don't know if you've analyzed this movie yet.
Yeah, because you haven't read
And I really want to take our next episode to do a full analyzation of this movie because I have a theory of my own as to how everything fits together, and I'm sure we're going to be on the same page.
His lectures as a history teacher, I think, are the key to a lot of it.
Yeah, I agree.
The final scene. You can't really say anything about it.
You can't unsee it.
Other than you should probably wear a Depends when you're watching, because it comes out of nowhere.
If you're a girl, I will dial 911 for you immediately because chances are you are going to flip.
I do think with being a girl, it bothered me.
Girls do not like that, though.
What men do?
No, well, that too, but that's not my point.
It's not a sex thing. I think it'll bother everyone.
That final scene will bother everyone, yeah.
So yeah, watch it.
Without giving too much away, the complexities of the pattern that this person goes through and meeting and interacting with this other character that we are getting to know tell us so much about what both people are going through. And I really love the way everything is handled. I love all the hints in the dialogue. This movie is a story about fear. Fear of something which I won't reveal because I want to go in depth into this next week.
Mm-hmm. And feeling trapped.
Feeling trapped. We won't say what for, but we're going to go dark after this and probably have a small 2-minute discussion about it. But this film is a film that everybody needs to see.
Enemy is the name of it.
Enemy is the name of it. If it goes on Blu-ray, I'm buying it immediately. I know that they're going to be releasing a DVD in June at some point, and I hope a Blu-ray release isn't far behind.
Is at the Art Theater this week.
Is it really?
That's why I recommended it.
I'd be interested in going.
Thank you for keeping your finger on the pulse.
I heard about it weeks ago and wasn't sure about seeing it or not. But I might want to go see that with you at some point so we can do the analysis of it. But yeah, that movie, it's a fantastic movie and a great recommendation. So thank you for that, Chuck.
Yep.
So until next week when we talk about Enemy in a Further Scope, I'm Chike Coleman of Sound On Sight. That's Chuck Koplinski of the Illinois Times. And we will see you next week. Keep enjoying movies. Bye.